We have a bunch of news to discuss because in 48 hours, the Dolphins play the Bills in Buffalo to kick off NFL Week 3. But both teams have major injury news and lengthy injury reports that we have to showcase. This is Dolphins Today. I am Nick Roloff. We'll start in Buffalo because two key defensive players for the Bills are DNPs in practice. This is their injury report from Tuesday afternoon. Ed Oliver, their star D tackle, was a DNP with an ankle injury, and Matt Milano, the linebacker, was a DNP with a pec injury. They had a pair of defensive backs, Taron Johnson, Cam Lewis, limited, and linebacker Shaq Thompson was limited as well. But when you talk about the two players up top here, Ed Oliver and Matt Milano, without a question, they are two of their top 5 defenders. I would argue that Ed Oliver and Milano might be their two best defenders when it comes to importance. Oliver was an absolute game changer in Week 1 against the Baltimore Ravens. And with them both being DNPs in the estimated injury report on Monday, but actual DNPs at practice on Tuesday, it puts their status for Thursday night's game in serious doubt. And it seems, in all likelihood, that both players will be missing this game. And when you talk about Ed Oliver, I am just having a hard time believing he is magically going to heal and be ready to play Miami on Thursday. As I mentioned, he was dominant against the Baltimore Ravens in Week 1. But then, out of the blue, he was placed on the injury report prior to Week 2 against the Jets and was even spotted in a walking boot. You're in a walking boot? Yeah, you're probably not going to be able to play just 5 days later. If you looked at the date on that tweet, it was September 13th, just a day before the Week 2 action on Sunday. So it's very unlikely that Oliver is going to play, and that is a massive blow to that Bills defense. Hit that sub button for daily Dolphins coverage, whether it's injury news, rumors, or breakdowns of Dolphins football. Plus, we got to take down the Bills in our short Week 3 sub battle. We lead by 2 as of filming this video. It's a close one. Bills breakdown, boo Smitty. Hit that sub button to take down the Bills. But when you think about Matt Milano as well here, Sean McDermott, speaking to the media on Tuesday, said that both Milano and Oliver not practicing today. Now, Milano does have a chance to practice on Wednesday. He mentioned they limited for the other players, but we're focusing on Milano here. Now, with that being said, it's been a very weird couple days for Matt Milano because he suffers a pec injury on Sunday, and we know pec injuries are very serious. Kalijah Cansey, the defensive lineman for the Buccaneers, is out for the year. James Daniels suffered a pec injury in Week 1. He was placed on IR. Now Matt Milano suffers a pec injury, and yes, they vary, but it's hard for me to imagine he will be ready to play just 4 days later. But McDermott has been very vague about his status for Thursday night's game, even mentioning it could be a long-term injury, but he could practice on Wednesday. So really, it's hard to tell if Milano's going to be able to go or not. But if you're asking me, I would likely project that the Bills are going to be without their best defensive lineman and best linebacker. And this is big for the Dolphins because it does give me a glimmer of hope that Miami may be able to take advantage of the Bills' biggest weakness, which is the fact Buffalo is absolutely atrocious against the run. We've seen it through 2 weeks now. And yes, they were better in Week 2 against the Jets. In Week 1, they faced the best rushing attack in football in the Baltimore Ravens. But through 2 weeks, the numbers are not pretty for Buffalo. They've given up the 31st most rushing yards per game, most yards per attempt. They are 9th in EPA per rush, but in rushing yards over expected per attempt, they're 29th. In rushing yards before contact per attempt, they're 31st, which means that D-line gets blown off the ball more times than not. Like I said, they did go against Baltimore in Week 1, but it's still something you have to monitor. And if you do want to upset the Bills, the largest recipe for success for the Miami Dolphins is to really hone in on the run game, control the clock, dominate the time of possession, make it a low-scoring game, and make sure that Josh Allen and the Bills' offense are on the field as little amount of times as possible. This Dolphins secondary and defense is the worst in the NFL. And the way that you hide those weaknesses of your own right, well, not let them get on the football field. If Miami wants to win this game, they have to at least control the time of possession by plus 10 minutes, 35-25. It's got to happen. And in a very small sample size, the Dolphins' rush attack might actually be the strength of their offense. Their rushing yards per play is 4th best in the NFL. Their EPA per rush is 10th. Their success percentage is 6th. And we talked about the Bills having the 2nd worst yards before contact allowed as a defense. Well, the Dolphins' offensive line has actually been solid in terms of their ability to block and run attempts because they are averaging 1.85 yards before contact on an attempt per run, which is 8th best in the NFL. So if you are able to really commit to the run, not fall behind early, and keep it close, maybe even take a lead early in this game, and then you can just go back and commit to the run. I formation, physical Ollie Gordon running the ball more. Then you bring in Achane, double RB looks. Alec Ingold's got to have a role. Moral of the story, Bills are down their best D tackle and best linebacker. They already have a bad run defense. You think the run defense is going to improve? No, it's going to be worse with those two out. Take advantage, especially if this is maybe one of your strongest points of your roster. What's your confidence level in a Dolphins upset this week? Mine is very low, but with the injury news and the revelation in the difference of run defense to offense, maybe it's a little bit higher. And coming up in just 1 second, we're going to transition from some Buffalo Bills injury news to the Miami Dolphins injury report and what is going on in Miami. But before we get to that, I got to show some love to Prize Picks, the sponsor on today's show. I play Prize Picks every day, and on Prize Picks, I make decisions, and decisions can get me paid where it's good to be right. Prize Picks also offers injury reboots. If one of your players leaves the game in the first half and doesn't return, Prize Picks will not count it as a loss. Prize Picks invent the flex play as well, which means you can still cash out if your lineup isn't perfect. Double your money even if one of your picks does not hit. I have an entry for Week 3, Dolphins, Bills, Thursday Night Football, more than Devon Achane receiving yards, more than Jaylen Waddle receiving yards. Also taking advantage of that max discount Patrick Mahomes half a passing yard, 3-player entry there. You take advantage of that max discount on Prize Picks now. Download the app today and use code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks. It's good to be right. Let's segue over to the Dolphins injury report now, where it's a little bit more lengthy, but not as impactful players being out. Yes, Ifeatu, Melifonwu, and Storm Duck, 2 starters at the beginning of the year, were both DNPs. We know Duck is not going to play. He was out multiple weeks with that ankle injury. Melifonwu suffering a calf injury on a short week, soft tissue, not going to play. But if we're going to be honest, Melifonwu's been really bad, so it's not the biggest thing in the world that he's ultimately not going to go. Wright's working his way back. Brewer's banged up, and Bonner's working his way back. Chop should be fine. So should Malik Washington, who is also limited. But the one concern that I have is actually on our starting center, Aaron Brewer. Out of the 8 players that were just on your screen on the injury report, the biggest and most crucial player would be Aaron Brewer. And he was not spotted in the locker room. Now, the Dolphins did practice late on Tuesday, but it will be interesting to see if Brewer is able to go because he was not spotted at the locker room. We'll see if he's ultimately at practice on a Tuesday evening. The Dolphins are practicing later because of the Thursday night game. They're doing it just later in the night just to maybe get a little bit more active there. But the moral of the story is the Dolphins can't lose Aaron Brewer. I mean, that would be devastating. We just talked about how Miami needs to take advantage of the Bills' lack of defense in the run game. And we just talked about how they're missing Oliver and Milano. Well, you need to be able to have your starting offensive line out there. You're already down James Daniels and Austin Jackson. So it's like if it loses its center too, This O-line is just absolutely brutal, especially with how much Jonah Savinaya has struggled through the first 2 weeks of the year. Brewer has been phenomenal, especially in the run game. Yeah, he has struggled in terms of pass protection, but I think that has to do with going up against the elite of the elite, Milton Williams, Christian Barmore, DeForest Buckner, Grover Stewart. That isn't the case in Buffalo without Ed Oliver. So I would expect the Dolphins' offensive line to maybe protect Tua much better in this game, especially from the interior. I would be concerned if this interior offensive line got dominated as much as it did in week 3 as it did in week 1 and 2, because the Bills' defensive front is simply not even close. Now, Brewer, if he misses, Daniel Brunskill would be the next man up, the backup interior offensive lineman. But we can't lose Brewer, man. He's so integral. His athleticism, captain, leadership, his ability to be an athlete, get on the perimeter after snapping the ball in this speedy, wide zone scheme that Miami uses, it is just second to none, and it's why he's been a perfect free agent signing and a perfect free agent center replacement for Connor Williams a couple of years ago. Now, it does seem like Miami feels like Brewer's going to be ready to go. McDaniel at a presser today said that he's doing whatever it takes to be on the field Thursday. He's a captain for a reason. And McDaniel feels very optimistic that Aaron Brewer is going to be able to go, which is good because, like I have mentioned in the last couple of minutes, Aaron Brewer is integral and as vital as it comes for this Dolphins offense. Rounding out the show with this talk here, Benito Jones still on the injury report with an oblique injury. I'm hoping he can return. Now, Mike McDaniel did say that he's been fighting like hell to be able to play and doing everything in his power. But it's not guaranteed. And in Benito Jones' absence, this is how the defensive alignment went. Sealer got the most snaps at 45. As expected, shout out Omar Kelly for being way wrong on this one. He tried to say that Zeke Biggers was the backup nose tackle in one tech. Yeah, right, Omar. Whatever. He got 6 snaps. Jordan Phillips got 40. Kenneth Grant got 37. Matthew Butler got 15, and he actually was the highest graded out of the bunch in that Week 2 game against New England. But if we're really going to talk about the interior defensive line as a whole, it has been rough. This interior defensive line has been unable to generate any pressure on quarterbacks so far, and it's really been the moral of the story. The Dolphins have had 4 sacks this year so far. Bradley Chubb 1.5, Chop Robinson 1, Jordan Brooks 1, but the interior defensive line, nothing. They haven't even really got any pressure. Zach Sealer has been MIA. Jordan Phillips has been okay in run defense, but Kenneth Grant has been not really that much of a factor. Yeah, they're rookies. Time will tell, and yes, they need to get adjusted. Chop Robinson struggled in the first 6-7 games of the year last year, but we have not got a lot of production from the rookie interior defensive linemen to this point, and hopefully that changes sooner rather than later. All right, that'll do it for this edition of Dolphins Today. Appreciate everybody. Hit that sub button. We'll have 2 videos going out Wednesday, 1 video out Thursday morning, and then live for the Thursday night game, 7 o'clock Eastern, 6 p.m. Central for that 8:15 game. Subscribe and join us today.